What if I told you that in just 4 years, half the people you know would be dead? Your family, your friends, your neighbors. Gone, not from war, not from famine, from something invisible that moved through cities like wildfire through dry grass. In 1347, that nightmare became reality. This is the story of the Black Death, the plague that killed up to 50 million people, the pandemic that changed everything, the catastrophe that somehow made life better for those who survived. And it started with an act of biological warfare that would make modern terrorists look like amateurs. The year is 1346. The Mongol Khan Genibeg is laying siege to Kaffa, a bustling trading port on the Crimean coast. Inside the walls, Genoese merchants wait. They have food. They have water. They can outlast any army. Genibeg knows this. He's losing soldiers every day, but not to combat, to disease, to something his men are calling the Great Mortality. They're dying in their tents, swollen, feverish, covered in black spots where their flesh has rotted while they're still alive. Genibeg makes a decision that will echo through 7 centuries. He orders his engineers to load the plague-riddled corpses of his own soldiers into trebuchets, medieval catapults designed to break walls. And he launches the dead into the city. The bodies sail through the air and crash into Kaffa's streets. The merchants are horrified. They throw the corpses into the sea as fast as they can. But it's already too late. The invisible killer has entered the city. Within weeks, Kaffa is overwhelmed. The merchants flee. They board ships heading west, heading home, heading to Europe. They're bringing the apocalypse with them. The ships dock in Sicily in October 1347. The harbour master takes one look at the crew and realizes something is terribly wrong. The sailors are dying at their posts. Those still alive are covered in egg-sized swellings. Buboes, they'll be called. The ships are ordered to leave immediately. But again, it's too late. The plague has made landfall. It moves with terrifying speed. By December, it's in mainland Italy. By January 1348, it's in France. By June, it reaches England. By 1349, it's consuming Germany, Ireland, Scotland. By 1350, Scandinavia falls. By 1353, Russia is burning its dead. 4 years, from a single port to an entire continent. Here's what people in 2026 don't understand about medieval cities. They weren't just crowded, they were cesspools. Streets were open sewers. Rats outnumbered people. Fleas were everywhere. And Yersinia pestis, the bacterium that causes plague, lived in those fleas. When an infected flea bit a rat, the rat died. When the rat died, the flea looked for a new host. Human beings were convenient. One bite, and you had maybe a week to live. The symptoms were biblical in their horror. First came the fever, then the swellings, the buboes appearing in your groin, your armpits, your neck. Black spots spread across your skin where the tissue was dying. You vomited blood. You couldn't breathe. Your mind shattered with delirium. Some people died within hours. The lucky ones lasted 3 or 4 days. There was no cure. There was no treatment. There was only death. But here's the thing that haunts historians. Nobody knew what was causing it. Imagine watching everyone around you die and having absolutely no idea why. No germ theory, no microscopes, no concept of bacteria, just terror and bodies and the overwhelming stench of death. The theories people came up with were desperate: bad air, divine punishment, astrological alignment, Jewish conspiracies, anything to make sense of the senseless. Let me tell you about Florence in 1338. 120,000 people, one of Europe's great cities, centre of banking and art and culture. By 1351, 50,000 remain. Half the city gone. The poet Giovanni Boccaccio watched it happen. He wrote about bodies piled in the streets, about entire families dying in their homes, undiscovered until the smell gave them away, about the living abandoning the sick because staying meant death. In Damascus, the chroniclers recorded 1,000 deaths per day in September and October of 1348. 1,000 every single day. The city couldn't bury them fast enough. They dug mass graves. They threw bodies into rivers. They burned them in enormous pyres that filled the sky with smoke and the air with the smell of burning flesh. London lost 60% of its population. 62,000 people, dead in 7 years. Hamburg and Bremen? Same numbers. Paris, half its 100,000 citizens. Entire villages were wiped out completely, not decimated, extinguished. In Germany alone, 40,000 settlements vanished from the map by 1450. Do the math. We're talking about deaths on a scale that wouldn't be matched until the 20th century. 25 to 50 million people in Europe alone. 30 to 50% of the entire continent. If that happened today, it would be like losing everyone in North America and Europe combined. In 4 years. But here's where it gets darker. People needed someone to blame. And they found their scapegoats in the Jewish communities. The accusations were insane. Jews were poisoning wells. Jews were spreading the plague deliberately. Never mind that Jews were dying at the same rates. Never mind that the plague killed indiscriminately. The mind that the plague killed indiscriminately. The mob wanted blood. In Strasbourg, Germany, the entire Jewish population was given a choice: convert to Christianity or burn. 2,000 people were marched to the burial ground. 2,000 people were tied to stakes. 2,000 people were set on fire. The same scene played out across Europe. Pogroms, massacres, entire communities destroyed. This is what happens when fear becomes fury, when people need an enemy, when truth doesn't matter anymore. And the death toll kept climbing. Monasteries and convents were slaughtered. If one monk got sick, the entire monastery followed. They lived together, ate together, prayed together, died together, prayed together. The friars and nuns who tended the sick, they went first. Their compassion killed them. The economy collapsed. There weren't enough people to farm the land. Crops rotted in the fields. Livestock wandered untended. Entire estates sat empty. The feudal system that had governed Europe for centuries started to crack. Why? Because suddenly, labor was valuable. Before the plague, there were too many workers and not enough jobs. After, the survivors could demand wages, real wages. They could negotiate. They could negotiate. They could move to other estates if they didn't like the terms. The power balance between lords and peasants shifted overnight. Taxes couldn't be collected. The living poor refused to pay the debts of the rich deceased. Why should they? The properties were abandoned. The fields were empty, and the tax collectors who remained refused to go near plague zones. Can you blame them? The Mongol Empire, already weakened, couldn't survive the trade disruptions. The plague that started in their territory helped destroy them, an empire that stretched from China to Eastern Europe, brought down in part by a bacterium. But then something unexpected happened, something that still puzzles scientists today. The survivors got stronger, not individually, generationally. Studies of skeletal remains from before and after the Black Death show something remarkable. People who lived through the plague lived longer than people born before it. They were healthier. They had better nutrition, better living conditions. The children born after 1353 had life expectancies that wouldn't be matched again until modern medicine. Why? The math is brutal but simple. Fewer people meant more resources per person, more food, more land, better wages, less competition. The Black Death killed the weak preferentially. Those with stronger immune systems survived, and they passed those genes to their children. Natural selection in fast forward. This is the uncomfortable truth about catastrophes. Sometimes they reset the board, sometimes they create opportunities. The Renaissance doesn't happen without the Black Death. The labor movement doesn't start without the Black Death. The decline of feudalism doesn't accelerate without the Black Death. Progress built on pyramids of corpses, does that make it worth it? That's not a question history can answer, but it's one we should ask, because here's the thing. We're not immune to pandemics. COVID-19 proved that. The same patterns emerged. The panic, the conspiracy theories, the scapegoating, the economic disruption. We had modern medicine, and it still killed millions. Imagine if we didn't. Imagine if the next one is worse. Imagine if the next one is as bad as 1347. The Black Death teaches us that civilization is fragile, that diseases don't care about borders or wealth or power, that we're all just biology, vulnerable to things we can't see, and that when the worst happens, humans will find someone to blame, someone to burn, someone to hate. But it also teaches us that we can survive, that we can rebuild, that even the worst catastrophe in human history couldn't destroy us. Europe lost half its population and came back stronger. Different, yes. Changed forever, absolutely, but alive. The plague returned again and again for the next 3 centuries. Smaller outbreaks, London in 1665, Marseille in 1720, each one a reminder that the enemy never really left, but each one less devastating than the last. Humanity learned, slowly, painfully. We learned about quarantine, about sanitation, about the connection between filth and disease. We didn't understand germs yet, but we understood cause and effect. The Black Death ended feudalism. It sparked the Renaissance. It redistributed wealth. It challenged religious authority. It proved that kings and peasants died the same way. It demolished the myth that God protected the faithful. It forced people to look for natural explanations instead of supernatural ones. It planted the seeds of the scientific revolution, all because a Mongol Khan decided to catapult corpses into a city, all because fleas bit rats, all because fleas Timoti pecked, all because ships sailed west, all because humans lived in filth. The butterfly effect written in mass graves. So what if it happened again? What if tomorrow a new plague emerged? Would we handle it better? Would we unite? Or would we fracture, just like they did in 1347? Would we find scapegoats? Would we let fear become hatred? History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And the Black Death is a rhythm we need to remember, because the next verse is always coming. The next pandemic, the next catastrophe, the next test of whether we've learned anything at all. The plague killed 50 million people, but it couldn't kill human resilience. It couldn't kill our ability to adapt, to survive, to rebuild. That's the real legacy of the Black Death. Not the death toll, not the horror. The fact that we're still here, still thriving, still learning from the worst moment in our history. The ships that left Kaffa in 1347 carried death, but they also carried survivors. People who refused to give up, who rebuilt their cities, who buried their dead and kept living, who proved that even when half of humanity vanishes, the other half endures. That's the story we need to tell. Not just the tragedy, the triumph, the fact that we survived the unsurvivable. And we'll do it again, whatever comes next. We'll survive. Because that's what humans do. We endure, we adapt, we remember. The Black Death killed half of Europe. But it couldn't kill hope. It couldn't kill hope. It couldn't kill hope. It couldn't kill us. Remember that when the next crisis comes. When the world feels like it's ending. Remember that we faced worse, and we're still here.